Welcome back to the Cameo podcast. I am sitting in Redbeard. It's a Thursday night. This place is pretty hopping. And this episode, I have Colton, a fellow Kamloops podcaster, sitting next to me. We're sitting on the bar right now, going to eat some meatballs. But this podcast is actually brought to you by hikingaddiction.ca. There are it's an app that is basically localizing trails and trail maps to one location. So they have a Kamloops app that they would like to get some maps on it. So they're actually buying maps. So if you have any GPX maps of local hiking trails in Kamloops, send them to hikingaddiction.ca. They'll actually pay up to $10 for those maps, or you can even choose to donate it to your favorite charity. They're that desperate for these maps, and thank you for sponsoring the podcast. Now, my actual guest for this podcast, who's sitting right next to me, is Colton. Colton, go ahead and say your last name, because there's no way I can say it.
My last name is Geschwantner, so I am Colton Edwin Geschwantner.
All right, perfect. It's ate a meatball. It's delicious. So, you have a podcast here. I was just listening to it, but you're a newcomer to Kamloops. When did you arrive?
I arrived in Kamloops in October of 2017.
Okay. And so what brought you to Kamloops?
Well, my girlfriend, who I am still dating, happened to get a job at the museum here.
At the museum?
Yeah, she is a full-fledged archivist, so she is the head archivist now at the Kamloops Museum. And they gave us about 3 weeks to pack up our entire lives out of Saskatchewan and move out west.
So what were you doing out in Saskatchewan before then? I did a little research on you. It looks like you were a musician in a previous life, and then I think, unfortunately, you broke your wrist or something?
Oh, yes. I was playing music in Almost Alien, who we haven't announced it yet, but we're on indefinite hiatus, as the band is located in Regina. The drummer is moving to New Zealand, and obviously I'm in Kamloops, so it's really hard to do anything with that right now.
Yeah, and so reading through kind of your Instagram and stuff, it sounds like something happened in your musician career that kind of inspired you to start the podcast, or how did you decide to start a podcast?
Okay, so basically, shattering my wrist, which was extremely terrible. I was riding a pedal bike and I got cut off by a car at an intersection. So basically, trying to avoid the car, I ended up flipping the bike, and I now have a steel plate, 7 screws, and 1 pin holding together my right wrist. So the doctors were very, very clear about the fact that I should take 6 months off before I even touch an instrument.
Okay.
Which was very painful.
Totally.
It was really hard news. Like, when I told the band about it, I actually, was tearing up. I was very dedicated to what we were doing, and to have that ripped out from underneath me was really difficult, because it was the first time I ever really chased one of my dreams.
Yeah.
So to suddenly not be able to do that I didn't know what to do, and I kind of felt useless in the music scene. I couldn't tour, I couldn't play shows, I wasn't inspired to promote shows anymore, simply just because I couldn't be involved with music myself. So unfortunately, I took it upon myself to that. But then I started to get a little bit down on it, and then I kind of one day I sat down and was like, how can I actually get back in the scene and help out the people who normally I would be working with, or that sort of thing. So I looked back at my musician career, and I realized that Most of the interviews that we did were heavily edited or edited in a way that made us look stupid.
What do you mean by that?
So, this guy, Parker Cannon, is the lead singer of this band. Can't remember them right now. Basically, he kicked a girl off of a stage in Toronto when she was in his way. She admitted she was in the wrong spot at the wrong time, but our local news station, because the story so far, that's the band's name.
Yeah.
They were playing a local show, and because we were the local pop-punk band, they decided that they would interview us on the situation, hoping that we would take the side against this band. So rather than giving them what they wanted, I went into this huge conversation about misogyny in music and how it's unfairly directed on punk and metal and everything else when we're not singing about degrading women, we're not singing about these things, when music that is in popular culture.
Oh, you can look at Tekashi 6ix9ine right now.
Exactly.
193 million views on YouTube, and his song Gotti is just, I have to listen to him. He's catchy, he's there, but it's ingrained in the culture, and I see what you mean. You know, coming from, I come from a metal background as well in music, and you know, when you're in an actual true mosh pit, it's pure equality because you're helping everyone get up.
Absolutely.
You know, no one is. Everyone is equal in it, and everyone wants to be there, and they take care of the people who are in it. And so, as a professional or someone who's been in the professional music scene for a number of years, by the sounds of things, what are you doing in Kamloops? Sounds like you're thinking about putting on some shows here too. Is that what's going on there?
I am actually set to announce Desert Tiger Entertainment's first set of shows probably tomorrow, actually.
Oh, cool.
So I have 2 shows that I'm set to announce, and there's another one where I'm waiting on a venue manager to get back to me last minute.
So what's your inspiration for the shows? What sort of talent or feel are you going for? What niche in the Kamloops art scene are you going to be providing entertainment on?
I am... See, there's sort of like, from the way it's been described to me, there's a little bit of a divide. Because Factotum handles a lot of the local artists, and JP does an amazing job of what he does.
JP was on episode 4 of this podcast, which I think is currently not hosted because of hosting errors, but
hey,
great guy.
No worries.
Great guy.
I understand that. I transferred hosts once before and had to repost everything at one time as well. So I understand that entirely. So yeah, like JP is handling a lot of the local talents and everything else. And we have Cammers, who is Drew McLean, who is another person I've been speaking with in the community.
I've done some work with him in the past as well. Yeah.
Yeah, he usually does like the radio rock. Like he only works with label type bands. So there's like Kamloops and Kelowna is a great spot for bands who are trying to tour through Calgary to Vancouver, because it's a really long drive, and if you can add in somewhere where you can stay a night, maybe make a little bit of extra gas money and sell some merch, then it's a great opportunity. But I've found that a lot of the people that I know in Western Canada and even Eastern Canada who are trying to tour through here don't know who to contact in the Kamloops scene. So I kind of felt like that could be my place.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. So you're bringing a little bit of the Eastern influence music scene.
Yeah, a little bit more west. A little bit of Western Canada, and it's going to be all sorts of different genres. Like I've got like straight up punk and like a post-hardcore type band for July 10th. I have like an indie singer-songwriter group for May 30th that's going to be coming up. And then the other show that I'm hoping to book is going to be pop punk and just sort of like that sort of thing.
Cool. And so where did Desert Tiger, the name, come from?
Okay, so there's sort of a backstory to it. Back when I was 19, I wanted to start a record label.
That makes sense. Young punk guy wants to start a record label? Yeah.
Yeah, even like back when I was a metalhead and just like a punk guy like in the Regina scene, I wanted to start a record label and sign a lot of local artists, but at the time I wasn't organized enough in what I was doing to actually pull it off. But I'm a huge fan of certain animes, and giant robots are a giant thing of mine. So Gundam Seed happens to have a character in it who his name is Andrew Garfield, and his like nickname is the Desert Tiger.
Okay.
Basically, he's like this really good commander who hides out in the desert and uses guerrilla warfare to draw his opponents into the desert and defeat them. So it's like the name just really drew to me, and like way back in the day, I wanted to put this name on my record label. So fast forward 8 years later, when I'm coming up with a podcast idea, it comes up again where I was like, well, what do I name it? And I was like, well, I've had this name Desert Tiger kicking around for years. And my girlfriend is actually originally from Kamloops, and she was in the middle of interviewing for the job, and she's like, well, it'd be really funny if we moved to Kamloops, because technically it's a desert, and technically when we had a zoo, the Kamloops mascot was Zeph the Tiger. So it was like, okay, no way, that is perfect.
So you started recording your podcast in Kamloops?
I started my podcast in Regina.
Okay. What episode did you come and first start recording in Kamloops? Because everything you do is in person as well, right? Or do you use Skype?
No. Unfortunately, because I'm still working a carpentry job on the side, I can't travel as much as I would like to. I'm supposed to be in Toronto right now for Canadian Music Week, but I couldn't make it work out. Totally.
What do you mean by supposed to be?
Oh, I totally got offered a media pass.
No way.
Oh yeah.
That's so cool.
Oh yeah, I got offered media passes to festivals in Montreal this year.
That was because of your podcast.
Yes.
That's so awesome.
Yes, just because people I've networked with out east. I for Pooza Fest out in Montreal. If I wanted to, I have media pass for that. Traveling right now is my main concern, because we literally just had to move again. So it's just as soon as I can turn this podcast into what I'm doing full time, I don't have to worry about taking time off from carpentry to go travel to Montreal or travel to Vancouver. Because I've had interviews that were requested for in person that I had to turn down just because I couldn't make the trip.
Oh, that's so cool.
Oh,
and this all kind of started when? What month did you start this all?
So the idea for it was sort of born in September, and then the first episode was released on October 6th of 2017. Crazy. So I literally booked 2 interviews in Winnipeg because I was still off because of my wrist, and we had to we were packing to move. And my Jesus Piece interview was on the Thursday, so I had to travel out to Winnipeg, 6 hours. As soon as I got there, did my very first interview, which was Danny Duggan.
The wrestler.
Yeah. Who I'm actually going to be going to 2 of his shows in BC coming up in May here, in Vernon and Golden. And I'm hoping to actually interview some more wrestlers for that.
Awesome. So what's your grand vision for the podcast? What area of the interwebs are you trying to carve out? Who are you trying to talk to?
Wow. So
I struggle with that question as well, but the easy answer for me is just Kamloops.
See, that's it. Is everyone always asks me what my niche was, and originally it was just well, I guess at first it was the story of Western Canada, And then I started, like, right away, as soon as I pulled Jesus Peace and Screaming Females, it's like, Jesus Peace is from Philadelphia, Screaming Females is from New Jersey. So right away, it was like, okay, so I'm breaking off into the States. And odd enough, as a Canadian podcaster who mostly features Canadians, my biggest market is the United States.
Interesting.
Yes.
So interesting. I'm having some people in the Canadian podcasting market checking out my LinkedIn profile, and it's like there isn't a lot of us.
No, there's like literally, like, I've watched and listened to a lot of the Canadian podcasters, and I am trying to coach like quite a few people in Canada and the States right now into how to build their podcast, because I'm actually teaching them how to start without having as many problems or as troubles as I did.
What sort of problems did you run into?
Well, right away, where I was shooting for the moon, which in all respects, like, it's a great idea, but when you're trying to interview people who are working in entertainment industry, if you, like, when it started, trying to book interviews when I didn't have reach, incredibly difficult.
So, okay, how did you book that first interview? If you didn't have reach, if you didn't have clout, you know, how did you pull off those interviews that kind of gave you that influence?
So basically, thankfully, Screaming Females will do as many interviews as they possibly can because they love their fans and they try to connect with them as much as possible. So their bassist got back to me right away, and he was like super down to do it.
Are you like sliding into Instagram DMs? How are you getting in touch with these people?
I will literally like smash their Facebook accounts, and I will find out like who is their booking manager, who is their media manager, what is their own email, like.
So this is how your music scene background has influenced your podcast.
Oh yeah, no, it's from already trying to book my own shows and trying to book other bands and everything else. Like, I already know, like, how do I reach out to these people, and it's basically what can I do for them and what do I hope that they can do for me in return.
Yeah, it's a symbiotic. I think I'm butchering that science term, but you know, I help you, you help me, rising tide lifts all boats.
No, absolutely, and that's part of the problem with not having reach right away. So it's like booking Danny was basically Danny's Canadian Wrestling Elite was the first live wrestling event I had ever been to. And one of the wrestlers on the card actually friended me on Facebook and invited me to the event. So since that's something I've used as a musician, as a way to get people to my events, so I was like, you sly guy. It's like, I'm going to come. Because, like, I grew up a wrestling fan. My stepfather's mom was a huge wrestling fan, and she would tape every pay-per-view for me. If I wasn't there watching it with her, or if I couldn't ride my bike to her house, she would tape it for me, and she would give me the tapes, and I would just sit there and I'd crush it. And I fell out of it for years, and like our band was like taking this slow spot. I really wasn't like doing anything in music at the time, so I was like, yeah, I'll go to a wrestling show. And I just fell right back in love with it again. So it's like every time CWE came back through Regina, I was super excited about it. I would hype them on social media and everything. So like I ended up like building a relationship with some of the wrestlers just before I even did this. So like I reached out to Danny and I was like, I would really love to feature you. I love what your company does. I love the fact that like you guys are actually trying to tour. Like it actually shows that you're more than just a local show. You're actually trying to like build something. And I was like, I would love to be a part of that. And I was like, I would really like to do that. And it was like pulling the other two interviews. Like Jesus Peace was, I knew the promoter on the show. Good friend of mine. That's it. Alone I Walk, I've played shows with them and I've promoted shows with them. So it's it. It's like I did a couple shows locally. Noah Picton, the Heck Crichton winning QB, is actually my cousin, so that's how I pulled that one. And
it's funny how it's just all who you know.
Mm-hmm.
And things just kind of fall into line.
That actually, because I interviewed Noah, it actually might help me once the BC Lions come to town for their training camp.
Oh, totally. Totally, yeah, because that's September, I guess.
I actually just got the call out for media.
What do you mean? How do you get a call out? We'll talk about it later. Anyways.
Connections.
We're coming. Normally, I keep this podcast pretty short. So at this point, Colton, where can people find you? Plug all your socials. Your latest interview is with a local Kamloops artist, Alex McGilvery. So check it out.
I follow the Gary Vee principle of you should pretty much be as many places as you possibly can be. So if you want to friend me on Facebook, I am Colton Geschwantner. It is incredibly hard to spell, but I'm sure if you figure it out, I am the only one that you will find. If you are looking for Desert Tiger, we are Desert Tiger Entertainment on Facebook. We are Desert Tiger Pod on Twitter. And we are also Desert Tiger Podcast on Instagram. I use the podcast's Twitter for everything because I don't use that quite as much. And my personal Instagram is colton.gesch. So
awesome.
Gesch, which is where all my personal happenings are. I try and keep everyone who follows me as
you got a happening Instagram.
I try to keep people as connected as possible to what I'm doing because I feel how else do you build that? There's a lot of fake people on social media, and I try to be as real as possible. Like, totally. I talk about mental illness a lot, and I feel if you're somebody who's going to do that, you have to be honest with what you're talking about because the people that you're going to possibly influence are looking for honesty.
Yeah, absolutely. I've definitely found parts of this podcast journey lonely or rather dark recently, and it's refreshing to hear people be open and honest about their mental illness issues because that was part of your episode with Alex.
Yes, definitely.
Was definitely tackling those social issues, and I think if we look at the current rapper scene or current music scene, we can see those mental illnesses basically be on the Billboard charts.
No, it's sad because it's not necessarily sad because it's like, yes, like it's showing that these people can be successful, but the way that we're glorifying it is what I would call sad because there's ways to influence people and actually help them. And that's what I try to do. I am very picky with my guests sometimes.
I think you have to be. I think you absolutely have to be. You want to make sure that you're putting something out there that you're proud of.
No, it's like literally the biggest stone wall I ever tried to put on an artist actually opened up the biggest doors for me. It's weird.
Interesting. It's funny how that works out. I've definitely had cases that would be like, how do I want to talk to you right now or not? No, I'm not going to say if we ever record it or not, but it's funny how those networks work and how people do end up opening up over audio, over a microphone.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And just having those simple conversations. And that's kind of my goal with this. Check out his podcast, Desert Tiger Podcast. Like you said, it's very easy to find. It's
everywhere.
Recorded here in Kamloops, so support the local talent that we have here. If you are interested in coming on, probably either of our podcasts, I'm sure you can connect with us because I imagine Colton also appreciates people who do hustle and make those connections. And, if we're not the right people to talk to, we will connect you with the right people that we think you should talk to.
No, Alex reached out to me himself, and I was very, very excited that he was willing to do that. And I actually have a pop-punk band from Florida who reached out to me recently.
See, Alex is... Sorry. Colton's thinking even bigger than Kamloops, like Florida and Philadelphia, and that's so awesome. That you're putting so much attention and bringing so much interest, and I think that Kamloops is going to be a wonderful entertainment production center really soon.
No, it's it. Is like I said earlier, is everyone said that I should follow into a niche, but what I'm creating with Desert Tiger is I've literally found that I can fit into any age group. I transcend borders. My podcast is listened to in over 50 different countries.
That's really impressive.
Different backgrounds, different religions. We transcend everything. Genre, we do not care. We just get out there, and if people have an interesting story about their struggles and what they've gone through to achieve them and what influences them and motivates them, we're there.
Perfect. And so to wrap it up really quickly, I have a part of my podcast I call Freeform, where I just unload what people give me. So if you send me an MP3 file that you want me to share and you're located here in Kamloops, send it off to me. I will share it. If you have some poems, some short stories, I will read it to Kamloops. Just reach out, share your stuff. I think you'll be amazed at how things will start coming together when you start putting something awesome out there. And Colton, thank you so much for putting some awesome stuff out there, located right here in Kamloops, BC. Thank you for agreeing to meet with me and for dealing with all my random text messages.
Hey, no worries at all. Thank you so much for reaching out to me, and I love hearing about the successes of my network. So no problem about the text messages at all.
Cheers. Bye-bye.